Welcome to episode 25 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie. Joining me as my co-host, a man who showed us why he has a master's degree in Rolling Terribly as he draws his miss twice in a row during our latest session in a very amusing few rounds. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, Gaz. And I think I took it in the spirit of our podcast in my stride.
You actually did. I actually took snippets of the video recording that we did, and I actually threw it onto our Instagram so people could to see it. And one of the comments I got DMing was, "You're very calm when you miss."
Yeah. I feel like it was the theme of my drawing, though. Like, on top of the misses, it was negatives and just garbage. So I think the dice gods, random gods, RNGs, whoever you want to call, was just getting me back for last week when I was like, yeah, I love this character. The deck draws really well. I was like, oh, okay, here, hold my beer, right? Like, let's see what we can put you through. So
At least you got to use your modifier deck because I barely used mine. On today's episode, we are going to cover just a little bit of news about the Frosthaven reprint, Gloomhaven 2.0, and the Gloomhaven RPG. I'm not going into all of it, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of what's there because I was finally looking into the back of kit to get an idea of what was there because I had no idea what was going on. And people are asking me, is this something that I'm interested in looking into? We're going to give an update on our campaign to give listeners a chance to maybe catch up to where we're at. Our road event on our way to scenario, which was 116, Caravan Guards, and a recap of that scenario with DPS meters, battle goals, general discussion of the scenario. And our outpost phase, was it eventful? So, first I'm going to jump. That's all right.
Spoilers?
Which part?
That it wasn't eventful.
No, it was a question mark. There's a question mark there.
Oh, okay.
Was it eventful?
There's a rhetorical question. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So, actually, guys, I was looking into 2.0 to get an idea of what exactly we're getting with this reprint. It's not really a reprint, actually. It's literally a whole kind of remake in a way, because I was looking into what they were offering. They're redoing the art. We're talking the tiles. We're talking card, the layout. A lot of it's going to be a little bit more Frosthaven with the way that they've realigned the card abilities and the character, the character board things. The original Gloomhaven one had almost like a rules reference, like a guide to how to do your turn and all that. So they're redoing all of that kind of stuff. And there's a couple of things that stood out to me. There's a new faction system for 2.0 with 3 main factions to build reputation with.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not too sure whether or not that's going to be like the 3 kind of paths we're going down, but it does sound different just based on the way they're saying they're factions, and you raise your reputation and lower your reputation with these factions, which then create some kind of perks and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
They're redesigning all the items, well, a large chunk of them. I don't know how many.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, with some new ones that are going to be added and rebalancing of some existing ones. Can you think of one off the top of your head that might need it?
Damn potion, greatest damn potion.
Yeah, maybe. They're going to do a scenario like book similar to what we have in Frosthaven. But
is that how Gloomhaven worked?
As in, they're going to have a scenario book right now, because no one ever looks at it except for me. You got the scenario book and you got the section book. So when you set up a scenario, it only shows you the setup, and then it's like read a section out of the section book to stop you from seeing further ahead. So they're
That's right, because in Gloomhaven you had to like put your hand over it to not read everything and see the whole board and all that. It was like kind of like one person had to pretend they didn't see how the scenario played out, right?
Yeah, well, literally when you're setting it up, it's like, oh, that's a lot of boards. Like it's the first thing you see. They're going to be new mobs and rebalanced mobs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how.
Yeah, this is not, say, in the video game sense when they do a remaster. They go, oh, it's remastered, and then you play it and you're like, no, it's the same game, but what you did is just like put gloss over it or added a cutscene in. And then they have the rework, I guess, or re-release. I don't know. There's a version where they actually overdo it. I think like Resident Evil is the most recent example of this, where they've gone through and actually remade most of the games.
Yeah.
And they're different games, right? They're just kind of set with the same theme. So yeah, this sounds actually really cool. Maybe we should just ditch Frosthaven and start a Gloomhaven podcast.
Sure. Let's just smash the two together and just Frost Gloom. They're gonna have a scenario
Haven.
tracker, like the campaign sheet, which tracks the days, summer, winter, all that kind of stuff. They're gonna be a system campaign sheet kind of system, similar, but in Gloomhaven. The story and events and everything like that are completely rewritten to flesh out the story more because
So what's the same other than the name?
there's a mind thief. I think they're keeping him.
So
Actually,
they not
the
they
brute
haven't
got
renamed
renamed.
the Mind Thief?
The brute got renamed to Bruiser.
Really?
Mm.
Oh, so they've even renamed some of the classes.
I think so. I haven't looked at all of them. This is just
Wow.
after I had a quick squiz.
Look, like, I
And
was
yeah,
yeah. Oh, I was talking to one of my mates the other day, and he backed Gloomhaven 2.0. It's the one that I play. I've been working through the digital game with, and I think they've finished the original of Gloomhaven. They're about to start Frosthaven, but he said, oh, I've backed Gloomhaven 2.0, and I was like, oh, you like literally just finished Gloomhaven. Like, how come? He's like, oh, I'll get it in the next year or so, and if I want to play it in 5 years' time, and there's a group and stuff like that, like it'd be worth playing through. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is like it holds up, right? Like even
mm,
if you hadn't played Gloomhaven and you played it now, you'd be like, yeah, this is a good game. But this is going to be completely different. Like this is
it's feeling that way.
like a massive overhaul. Like it sounds like it's 100% worth getting if you were a fan of the original and potentially Frosthaven, because yeah, it sounds like they're putting heaps more work into it, which is way further than. Granted, I did zero research when I saw and heard about Gloomhaven 2.0, so I made a bunch of wild assumptions based on zero information, but it's exceeded my expectations.
Mm. Yeah, they've basically also like printing all of the miniatures as well. So every creature, every
Really?
person, yeah, every creature. There's a 265 miniature pack, like a big box, and they're gonna come with the elite like rings, like yellow rings and normal ones, and apparently flight stands for the flying monsters and things like that.
Wow. Okay. All
Um,
right. Hang on. Sorry. I'm gonna have to just. We'll stop the podcast. We'll stop Frosthaven. Let's wait until they do Frosthaven 2.0, and then we'll pick that back up
yeah,
from where we are now, and then we'll play through the rest.
they
So sorry,
should
listeners.
basically make Frosthaven, but like 1.0 of Gloomhaven, so it's fair. They should be like, you know what I mean? They should go
Yeah.
backwards. They
So they
should
should. The
depatch
next
it.
release of Frosthaven should be a worse version of it,
Well, not worse, just older.
just older and more and not as good.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're gonna have all the summon miniatures and everything like that. So this is all. There's a whole bunch more there, and they're constantly showing more that's coming out. But this is fantastic, especially for people who haven't yet to touch it. I think it'll also be fantastic for people like me who have not touched it in forever, and I don't really remember much of it.
And if you wanted to try and kill another 1,000 hours.
Look, I don't know if I'd find the group.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, have you like for those people out there that have way too much time on their hands and know three other people who also have too much time and want to redo that again? It sounds amazing.
yeah, if you're in Australia, hit me up. Let's do this.
Uh,
Alongside,
so
yeah.
just to play devil's avocado for a minute,
Hmm.
right? And I don't, this isn't my thoughts, but I just thought that could be the thoughts of some people. Is this a bit of a considering what they're doing and how close to the release of Frosthaven this is, and how much they're updating with things like the miniatures and all those bits and pieces? Is this a little bit of a why didn't you do this with Frosthaven?
Um, I think they're trying to make Gloomhaven more like Frosthaven. I think Frosthaven has all of this, right? With the exception of the miniatures, which, if you let me get to it, they're gonna do Frosthaven ones as well
Oh,
in the same campaign. So there's three main facets to this campaign. It's Gloomhaven 2.0. It's the Frosthaven reprint, just so that they can get another batch out there. But with that come additional things that you can get, like the solo scenarios and the inserts and all that kind of stuff, and also miniature packs for Frosthaven. So you can actually get all of that included as well.
okay.
The only difference between Frosthaven that we have and the Frosthaven that's coming out, other than the add-ons, like the miniatures basically, are errata. They're just
Yeah,
fixing just stuff. That's it.
which they did in Gloomhaven anyway. I know they re- when they did their first re-release of that, like the reprint after the Kickstarter, that had some of the errata changes in it, didn't
Yeah,
they? Like updated rules and how they tweaked some of those things. So
yeah. They're also bringing out the Gloomhaven RPG.
Oh yeah,
which
saw that. Yep.
yeah, which is good, really cool. Good custom creation. You know, Savas, Spellweaver, or whatever you can pick. You know, mixture of race and character. You get your cards, your hand of cards. And what I found really interesting with this is, you know, the cards actually, other than being in combat cards, pick a top bottom or pick your two cards during combat for each round of combat or whatever. They are also used as a resource outside of combat. So when you're
Okay,
doing challenges or whatever, your modified deck also has a random number at the bottom of all the modified cards that can be used for when you're doing some kind of a test.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started watching. I think at one of the cons they had a like live kind of show or whatever you call it of the Gloomhaven RPG, and I started watching that, and then I got a bit into it and found something else to do. But it did seem interesting because they were going through a couple of the characters, and I could see them playing with the cards and stuff like that. And as someone who's played like a lot of different RPGs, that's really different, right? Like you there are spell cards and stuff for things like D&D, but they're not a requirement of the game. They're more
Yeah.
just an aid. Right, this sounds like the cards are like a key component of the game. Instead of having dice and a character sheet, in a sense, you've got these cards, which is kind of cool to, fit in with the theme of the Haven series and also be different, not just be fantasy Gloomhaven, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, here's D&D, but it's in Gloomhaven world.
Yeah. They've
Which,
made it like a hybrid. They've kept true to what made Gloomhaven, right?
mm,
And they've made it feel based on very little information, based on little research, I should say, they a Gloomhaven RPG.
mm.
Um so yeah, that's just everything there that I wanted to just have a little chat with you about. Very interesting. I haven't backed it. I'm not too sure what I'm gonna do yet. I still have plenty of time. We will see. We will see. Another thing that I wanted to have a quick chat to you about was our listeners know that we've been using Gloomhaven Secretariat for a while. We've made a switch as of the last scenario. We've wanted to have a bit more of a sync up and make it easier. We have everything on a monitor right now. We wanted to have everything a little bit easier where we have mobile devices so that we can keep track of things like initiative and get a better idea of what monsters are doing and all that. And we were having syncing issues with that, and it was good. We've swapped to X-Haven Assistant, which feels simpler in a way, in a good way. There are some things that I definitely miss, like how the other one, Secretariat, keeps track of, things that happen at the end of the turn, like bleeds, it automatically applies them and regens and all that. But sometimes that can also be a slight problem. Like when it constantly, we like to do our own poison. We don't like to use the app that does a poison and goes, would you like to add this? So this is just something that we've swapped over, and we're actually really, really, we've had no problems with it. We've actually thought it was fine. There is one question I do have though. Phil has boots of change initiative, and we can't work out how to change his initiative after we've drawn. Can someone let me know? Because it's so hard to Google.
Yeah, we didn't find that out, did
No,
we?
we were all trying, and we just couldn't work it out. And then we
Yeah.
just went, Phil, you're going at 45. And then we had
Yeah,
to
just
remember,
remember that.
which is really hard.
I mean, let's just take the boots off him. It's probably easier. So
I
that way we
wish.
don't have to deal with, oh, should I or shouldn't I?
Should I,
Let's go,
shouldn't I,
let's not
should I,
go.
shouldn't
Like,
I?
yeah. Yeah, I think from my perspective, the one scenario in the only complaint I have is that I had to do things again. So it's not really a fair complaint, because if we were playing with the actual game without that, then you'd have to track your own XP, your own health, your own all of those things. So I'm sure after a week or two I'll get used to it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it too much. I had the phone next to me and I was just flying through it much quicker than Mark was with his squinty kind of eyes and his moving the mouse. Yeah, sometimes we doubled up on damage and it was not good. Quick roll
Yeah, well,
call.
that's the only other thing we've got to sync up. We've got to work out who's doing monster damage, who's doing like player damage. You could kind of assign and say everyone do your own.
Mm,
We've got to work out monster damage though, because there was times where it's like, have you done that? Have you not done that? And yeah, that's the only thing that could get messy.
true. Roll call. So we are now 25 episodes in. We are actually 18 scenarios in. We've almost finished our...
It?
Yeah.
What do we do for 7 weeks?
Well, there was some failing in there, but there was some chats. There was some chats. There was like a mini episode. The first one doesn't really count because we were still, getting excited to play it. Like, yeah, well, yeah, we're just 18 episodes in. I don't know what to tell you.
18
18
scenarios.
scenarios in. Look, I checked the app. I could be wrong. I'm not usually wrong, right? We have failed a scenario 4 times.
Yeah, but we redid them all the same night, didn't we?
I know, I'm just counting our failures.
Okay, all right.
It's what my mum always told me to do. We have retired 2 characters. So Daddy's Drifter level 7, had 10 perks, 0 masteries. Gaz's Jebonate level 7, had 11 perks and 1 mastery. We currently have Phil, who's on a level 8 Deathwalker, as of before this game happened. Mark, a level 7 Bone Shaper. Daddy, a level 3 Snowflake. And Gaz with a level 3 Coral. Our prosperity level is 3.8, and that's just basing it on the little squares across from the 3. And morale is 16, which is looking pretty good. We have 3 lumber, full metal, 10 hide, 9 inspiration, and 25 defense.
Quick edit, isn't Phil level 9?
Now he is.
Oh, okay.
That was just before this scenario.
Oh, before this scenario.
Yeah,
Okay.
because then it makes it sound like we actually did an outpost phase.
Well, I was level 2.
Ah, I see.
See, yeah. Anyway.
That's all right. So, scenario 116, which was, and I forgot the title again, it's all the way back up here. Scenario 116, Caravan something.
Caravan of Courage?
Caravan Guards, not Caravan of
Oh,
Courage.
please, if anybody knows what Caravan of Courage is, give
What
us
is
a... you won't know. It's an in-joke for me and everyone. One
Just
of the
you
other
and
people.
Everyone else.
Everyone else, yeah, other than you. Anyone
So it's my
who's
out
seen
joke.
Maybe.
Because I'm out of
It's
it.
a Star Wars joke.
Oh, no. Sounds terrible. Scenario 116, Caravan Guards. We had a road event. What was our road event, Gaz?
I 100% remember exactly everything that happened in this road event.
Yeah, go for it.
So I believe that some of our resources were exchanged for goods and or services.
No, it's not what happened. But what did happen was we had a event, and then halfway through the event, I had to say, what's going on? While everyone's discussing what was happening. So we came across a thing, right? There was a person. They weren't doing much. And there was another person.
Oh, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It was really cool.
I think we got stiffed.
This is my thing that was interesting about this, was that this was the first time you've got words like, what do you call them? Attributes?
Keywords?
Keywords. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
keywords. And it's kind of like, if you've got, most of the ones, it's like, oh, if you've got this keyword, read this section, because it's, and it's always been amazing. It's not like you get to use it either if you have it, which we learned this time, because it was like, if you have this, we read this thing. And it wasn't the best thing.
No, it was bad. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't even not like a great reward. It wasn't like, oh, I just get a little reward. It was like you lose something. But then we don't know what would have happened if we'd chosen the other one. So maybe this loss was better than whatever the next loss was be.
That's true.
So, but yeah, it's interesting because it made me think about the scenarios and working them out. And we've talked a little bit about this with like not just flipping a coin, right? Like going in, and they're better when you can try to work out which direction you're going to go based on what you choose. Because if it's just pick A or B and then you have no idea about how it's going to play out, then it's kind of like, well, this doesn't really matter. We just chose poorly. In this, we kind of worked out, we're like, oh, we think we can use our keywords to get past, the direction we took. And we did successfully do what we wanted to, but it ended up being bad.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Same.
Because but I could see where if that's too much, then again, you end up back in that space where you go, well, now it doesn't matter what we think. We're still just picking. Because if the other side is good and it requires no keywords, right, which we'll never know unless we read the card, that's bad for design around this stuff, because it means that now we go, well, maybe sometimes we don't want to be able to accomplish the thing that we went with. So yeah, I'm just going to run with the fact that this was cool, and it was a cool little change it up to think you can't always win. I just hope that it's not the case of where it's still just like random.
Yeah. I don't know if listeners know this, but when we get an event card, I cover the half that we're not reading out. So if you pick section B, for example, I immediately, when I flip it over to read the result or get Fortella to read it, I cover the half that we're not doing so that I don't know what we're missing out on. I'm not really that tempted to look into it, because then I will feel like I need to share that with everyone else.
Mm.
So I'd rather all of us not know. And I don't know why. It's just more of I find it more, I don't know, risk reward. It adds to the intrigue of what else the game throws at us. There's no right or wrong. It's just, I like the way it is
Yeah.
because we just,
Well,
like you said, we don't know what the other option was.
yeah, well, that's the thing because I think if you start reading both sides and how they apply, what they were asking for, it gives you a better, I'll say, use the word meta for an example of like how it all, like the system. And once you kind of figure out the system, then you can start trying to game the system. And I like the
Yeah,
fact
you're
that
right.
at the moment we pretty much just go into it going like, oh, let's try and do this. Does anyone have anything they think would help in that situation? Oh yeah, I've got, what is it, Nimble? That was always the joke.
Yeah.
Oh, that could work. All right, cool. Let's go with that. And I like the way we work those out because it kind of makes the road events a little bit more interesting.
There's also, I think we did this back in Gloomhaven as well. And I think one of the main reasons that I was doing this when we used to tear the cards up and dump them into a little container to carry them was that I wanted to potentially, if I wanted to replay the game,
Mm.
maybe pick another path, knowing now that I would probably forget by the time that even happens.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not something that it's going to happen that I can think of unless 2.0, so they're going to redo it all anyway, right?
I'll be completely redo it, and it'll be the opposite.
That's right. So no, it was a good event.
Mm.
Scenario 116. So this is the third one in Pinter's Jamboree, and this
Well,
time
be specific about which jamboree because he's popped up to
there's been a few
help us with
jamborees.
another. Yeah, yeah. This is his grand plan to blow a hole in the mountain and send caravans through.
Yeah, we've done the blowing, and now we're doing the escorting caravans. So we went up there and we set up the map. And our scenario goal, basically, there was a road that was traveling all the way from one side to the other. We started on one side. We could see the creatures that were going to be there. This is something that I got super excited about, was that all the Algox mates were there. The whole family was
Mm.
catching up, and we got to see some really, really old friends.
Yeah, the band was back together.
100%. The scenario is complete when all 5 wagons have either escaped or been destroyed. At the end of that round, we read a section. And the special rules being at the start of each round, a wagon will spawn. It'll spawn all the way at A, and then it'll move at 3 at initiative 50 and work its way down the road towards B. So it's kind of like the eels. It treats the road as corridor and everything else as an obstacle.
Mm.
And this will occur for the first 5 rounds. So at round 3, we spawn stuff, kind of like just more creatures, more Algox guys are coming in to attack us. And then round 6, same thing. That's the basic premise, and that's the basic setup. And already, like, from the very thought, like, what were your initial thoughts on what we were getting ourselves into?
Yeah, it looked really cool, and I think there was a oh shit moment when we realized that the wagons were starting at one side of the map and we were starting at the other.
Which I did
So it
find
wasn't
weird.
escort the wagons along. It was the wagons are going to start over here. You've got to get to them and then escort them over. So that again added a little bit more.
Yeah, which I think thematically, I don't know, it was kind of like, obviously they were coming when we were arriving and then the attacks came, but it did, I thought in my head it was going to be like a escort the payload kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the idea, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong, is that the wagons were coming from the other town, so they had opened
Ah,
up the path, and then the wagons were coming, and then we were like, "Oh, you better go make sure that there's no Algox bandits that have literally set up camp." It's like the freeway had been open for 2 minutes, and suddenly now there was already bandits.
mm,
Like this place is ridiculous.
it's Eastlink.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So our old mates Algox archers, we haven't seen these guys since scenario 2 or something, maybe 4.
Yeah. Oh no. We had them in which was the scenario with the rocks that we had to kill to stop having shields. 10?
Were they in
Scenario
that?
10? I think so. They were in that with the priests, weren't they? Because I feel like there was a round that they
I thought there was
immobilized
snobs.
us. Yeah, maybe they weren't.
We
I'm sure they were.
we have not seen them in a really, really long time. No,
Okay.
there was none in the pillar one.
Okay. No, not in the
Yeah,
pillar one. Not in the
the
pillar one.
pillar
In
shield
the
one.
yeah, the one,
There
the
was
really hard one, the one that came down to like the
no.
last
It's
slip
just
of card.
guards, priests, and the ice speaker.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. I thought no, they were just priests back there. That was hard without archers.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was really
Yeah, well,
excited to
like that's
fight
when we put
these.
them down. We'll because Mark hasn't played with them, so he wasn't there at the start when they just absolutely wrecked us.
Yeah.
And I remember looking and I was like, "Ah, these will be fine
Yeah.
now." Like, even though me and you are like level 2 and 3, right? So we're not exactly high level, but we're experienced. We're like,
We know
you
what
know,
they
we
can
know how to
do.
play this game,
Shoot hard.
and yeah, and we've got Phil, that just level 8 Deathwalker that just looks at stuff and it dies, and we got Mark with his bone army that just nothing can take down. But no, it turns out they're still OP, right? Range 5, attack 5, and when you draw nothing but green and purple cards, that's really good.
I feel like their damage didn't really go up. It didn't need to. It was
No,
it was
they're already OP and they have not scaled with level. They've just yeah.
so we had Algox
They
guard as well, which are just heavy, like the heavy guard guys. I wasn't too worried about them. The scouts came back, and I only have one scenario that I can really remember them being in. It was scenario 2 with the priest,
yeah
and it was this combo that booked the priest with the archers and the scout
yeah
at the
yeah
front,
yeah.
the big dude with the sling. So we're getting to see those as well. And then, of
Mm.
course, they're going to spawn ice speakers as well. So we had, yeah, like I said, the whole Algox clan was in there. And look, I'm an Algox, so, hey guys,
Why didn't you do something about it?
I didn't have a high enough initiative,
Okay.
unfortunately. But yeah, what did I write? I wrote down our very, very old mates, the Algox archers. So excited to see them after all this. Oh, I'm nearly dead already.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is what happened.
So much damage. Like Mark was getting really shitty that every time he summoned a skeleton, they would just instantly just giving. Like
Yeah.
he just couldn't keep a skeleton alive, and then he had to do his double summon thing, which does like 6 damage to himself. So he basically like getting shot by one of these archers.
Mm.
And then even still, they just kept even with disadvantage. Disadvantage. Oh, is 6 damage good on disadvantage? Sure, why not?
Yeah. And we split up at the start. You and I went one way, Phil and Mark went the other way. We thought we'd kind of just draw fire a little bit and deal with everything. Look, the two newer guys on 3 health, level 3, level 2 and level 3 or whatever we were, probably shouldn't have gone together.
Nah, we had that. It's fine. Like a crab and a snowflake. We got this.
Do you remember the first turn? Your first turn? You were organizing with Phil where you were both going to go
Yeah.
and you fought over a spot?
No, there was no fighting over the
Oh,
spot.
okay.
He's
Can
like,
you can
I'm gonna
you
go there. I'm like, oh great, I'll go over here. And then at the start of the turn, he's like, I'm not gonna go there. And it's like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad that I planned my turn around going somewhere else. Thanks. He's like, oh well, I'll go there then if you're gonna get annoyed. I'm like, no, well, that doesn't fix it. Go where you want to. I don't mind, but just and I know a couple of things change, which makes sense. But it just seemed so like turn 1. Okay, I'm gonna go here and gonna hit this guy. Okay, great. And then the thing was that he went at like 80.
Yeah, he
So
did.
he was surprised when everything had moved around by the time it got to his turn. It's like, well, of course they were. Like he got at 80. So yeah, anyway, that was it was a good start. Good
Yeah,
start.
yeah. So we kind of were splitting up, and I think the thought process was because where everything was, if they were focusing, I guess, a little bit on us, they weren't focusing on the wagons.
Mm.
Because from turn 1, one of them started moving down. Turn 2 comes around, another one spawns. They start moving down at speed 3, so movement 3. And yeah, it's kind of like trying to make sure that all the damage and everything's coming on us. Now, our side doesn't have a lot of damage because the things that were on our side kind of stayed up for a really long time. I know this because I had a scout next to me the whole time.
Mm.
Scouts have innate impair. And I spent 80% of the game impaired. And
Yeah.
we actually chatted about impair as a condition. And compared to all the other conditions, impair is a new one in Frosthaven. You can't use your items.
Mm.
And we were talking with the very first time when we were learning the rules, what's new, brittle and, ward and all of these things. Impair, and we both kind of scoffed at it. Like, this isn't
Yeah, totally.
a big
Looking at the
deal.
thing, if you look at that list and you go, okay, you've got brittle, or that could be really bad. You go, obviously, water's a positive one. You've got
Bane.
Bane, and you're like, oh, okay, I can heal it off. That's okay, but like
Yeah.
10 damage, that's brutal. And then you're like, impair, can't use items. Who cares?
Yeah,
Like, that's not even. Would you even remember that was on there? Whatever. Turns out it's the most annoying out of all of them.
actually. He's actually the
Like.
most annoying.
Yeah.
Because it
So
just,
many times it came up, it's like, oh, just use your, oh, that person's impaired. Okay, cool. What about if I no, you're impaired.
Yeah, no
Like
potions, no nothing.
no nothing. Yep. Yep. So it was the impair was interesting. One thing that just to kind of paint the picture, because I remember we talked about this when we were doing the scenario, was this one. Well, this one was kind of like a reverse TD or tower defense for those who know what that is, because in the last one along Pinto's highway of awesomeness, we had to protect the pillars because there was like the pillars and we had to run up, and that was kind of like we were told, this is kind of like a tower defense because like the mobs are spawning, we've got to get in the way so they don't kill these. This was like a reverse one in that the mobs were kind of moving to kill the train of these caravans and we had to go out and get in the way. It was kind of a really
We were
interesting
the
flip.
mobs.
Yeah, we were the mobs. Like we were the mobs trying to kill the towers, and the towers were the baddies,
Yeah.
right? So it's really weird. It's like, okay, we've got to make sure that our train of tower defense dudes gets through to the end, and that's how we
Mm.
win. And to do that, we've got to send our heroes out to go kill the towers. So it was a lot of getting in the way of seeing where they're going to go and trying to be closer and things like that. So it was really, I think it was a really cool way to keep putting pressure on us, continuously throughout the scenario.
Oh, the level 3, sorry, round 3 spawn kept us on our toes. Like I said, you and I weren't really killing that much. Mark's skeleton army was like one down, one up, one down, one up. Phil was setting up, I think, for about 80% of the game. He did good. He did really, really, really good. And then the wagons kept coming down, and then we started to see a little bit of damage. So these guys started wailing on the wagons, and they would like beat into one a little bit, and then it would run past them, and then the next one would rock up, and then they'd start beating into that. So it's like a production line, except the wagons kept getting smaller as they were coming down the
That's
mountain.
what I mean. That's what like a tower defense because it was that one Algox guard that was standing right at the front, and then the wagons would move up next to him. He'd like whack them, and then they'd move on. He'd do like 5 damage to it, and then move on, and then the next one would move up. He's whack that, and I it's just assumed that the guard sitting at the front going, "Sorry, I know my mates at the back are going to get the rest of him," but they weren't because we were kind of funneling them through. So
And I was waiting to see. We know a little bit of what I do. I was waiting to see what the crab man does, and I was waiting to see. I haven't seen a lot of difficult terrain or water or anything like that coming out. I think you set placed one on a spawn point, which I don't think did anything. And then you did some really cool AOE where I think you hit something for -2 and then hit another one for a miss.
yeah,
And then you did something else and missed. And that's so far a snapshot of what I think your character does.
just miss.
Kind of.
Yeah, that's just it's heaps of missing.
And then play 3 cards.
Yep.
I mean, 3 cards is pretty good though.
Yeah, I know. And then when you can miss on, I mean,
There
it
was
just
actual
means you can miss more
several
often, right?
times you were saying, "Oh, that idiot moved." Like there were several times you had planned for something and they kept moving, which meant the 3 cards you were playing, one of them was doing something and the other 2 were just going straight into your discard.
No, it just meant that I think would miss out on like a bottom attack or something like that. So there was a couple of times, although there was one time at the end when I was just trying to maximize by playing 3 cards and hitting something next to me 3 times. So, but yeah, well, I'm still learning the ways of the crab,
Oh yeah.
and yep, that. And no, I think I'm getting a hang of it. It's actually one of the things someone on Twitter, Ryan on Twitter, contacted us and said, you know, with my battle goal last week, where I had to have no cards in my hand at the end of each rest, and I was kind of like, oh, it was easy because I just made sure I didn't have any, and then I rested, and then I burned a card to make sure I didn't have odd amounts. And he's like, I think Gaz has completely overlooked the fact that he can play 3 cards.
Mm,
So like you can very easily fix any odd numbers. And I
mm,
didn't even think about that until well after. I think it might have even been during the episode. But I didn't really use the 3 card thing in the first scenario I did with him because I was trying to be a bit more conservative.
mm,
Whereas at this time, I kind of had an idea about how long it was going to go. I kind of knew more of what I could do, and I did get the 3 card one out pretty early,
mm,
and actually had a crack at and doing it. And I think it's I think it's going to be really cool to unlock a few combos, but it's there's some interesting things you can do, like play a card to move and then do 2 tops, or even do a top and a bottom. You know those times where you're like, oh, I want to do this bottom to buff something I'm doing,
yeah.
and I also want to attack, but I need a move.
Yeah.
It gives you that option because you
Okay.
can kind of, even if you just throw any card down to do a move 2,
Yeah.
right? You do a move 2 to get yourself in position, and then you can still do like a buff card that's a bottom and a top. So I think that, yeah, I'm going to be definitely playing with the 3 card thing
No,
a lot more often.
yeah. And no, we look forward to seeing that. And we saw you pull a lot of green modifiers last week. It was just this was
Yeah,
a bad week for it. And that's
this was
completely fine.
a red and
Like I
yellow.
said, I
Yeah.
barely pulled any because I barely did anything. I punted a few things around here and there, push pull. I was getting unbelievably frustrated with positioning. So what I'm learning is Snowflake needs really top tier positioning in order to take advantage of all your movement cards as well as lining up the elements. And the way we were structured with the road, this was something I was actually torn with. I wanted to push things onto the road to take the trap damage. So they take chilling touch damage, they take hazardous terrain damage if I had any out, which I didn't, and then get hit by a wagon. But then the other thing that was fighting with me was then they're next to the wagon, then they're just going to punch the wagon, and the team's going to get sad, especially if they book a wagon. And I was like, can I live with that kind of guilt? But this is really cool. It was really, really conflicting with me trying to work out this positioning. So more of these things, ice speakers came out, and they started a big train started wailing into it, and we started to get towards the end. We've actually still got all 5 up, and we were trying to work out, hey, we're actually doing all right. As more, scouts spawning, more Algox archers are spawning, and everything, we kind of had it under control. And you and I had a little chat where I sat there and there's a moment in there where I'm in the rule book, I'm looking at Reddit, I'm looking at BGG, I'm looking at Discord, I'm back in the rule book, and I'm looking at the scenario rules, and I'm like, these guys, these wagons can't be affected by conditions, and they can't be forced movement, but I can grant them +2 to their movement
Because they're allies.
because they're
'Cause they're
allies.
allies to us and enemies to the monsters.
Yeah, so we've got the birds card, which is such a good card. I'm using it a lot with these guys, but it didn't hit me that this could work until this far into the game. And I was like, holy crap. And I looked at you and I was like, is this a thing? And you were like, yeah, no, that actually makes sense. And all of a sudden I realized that I could also grant movement, right? As well on top of that. And all of a sudden I realized, holy crap, Snowflake MVP in a scenario like this, because all of a sudden these guys had NOS and these wagons just burned their way towards the end. Now it's really, really unfortunate that on the round that I was doing that, I think Birds is an initiative 18, and the scouts or the ice speakers or whatever went at 17, and they actually booked 2 of the wagons, which was super sad because we almost got them out of there.
Yeah, we would have. I think that turn you were going to clear most of them, and they were definitely going to be all out of the reach of the monsters. But yeah, these idiots went really early, and then we were just, there goes 2 wagons.
We were getting lucky with the draws prior to that, though, when they were hitting it, right? They kept pulling. We had curses in their deck, thanks to Mark,
Yeah,
thanks to
minus
Phil.
ones.
They were
Yeah,
pulling
yeah.
-1s. Some of these wagons were literally going down on 1 health. And it was just really, really tense. Just anytime they were going to attack it and whether or not they were going to succeed. This was also the part where I realized, oh, we've only got 1 turn left because the wagons are so close now. Everyone still had their cards in their hand. All of a sudden, things like battle goals, things like XP dump cards, like this is the moment we kind of realized, oh, we've actually won this scenario. But in my head, we won it before I was ready because it's not something we could do.
Yeah, well, because the win condition, the end of the scenario ends when all 5 carts are either run off the table or been destroyed, and you win as long as at least one of them gets away. So because we got 1 through, we knew we couldn't lose from that point on, and because we'd moved them a bit closer, we're like, oh, okay, well, there's only 1 more round. Doesn't matter what happens, we can't lose from here. So, unless all 4 of us got exhausted, but we were well away from that. But one thing I learned is that being able to play 3 cards is great for one last turn XP dump. Because I was just looking at my hand, I'm like, okay, well, that's 2, and that's 2, and that's 1. Great, let's go.
I have, because I recorded this, our session, I recorded it. I was going through it when I was slicing it up to have little outtakes for an extras thing I'm throwing on YouTube. And one of the moments it was literally me there looking at my cards, and I've got a very obvious thinking face because I'm deep in thought, and I'm sitting there trying to work out, I have a battle goal that I am not going to complete, but maybe I can. And the penny dropped, and I realized, I'm just going to say it, my battle goal was actually Zealot. Have 3 or fewer total cards in your hand and discard pile, while also not exhausted at the end of the scenario. And this is the last round, and I'm rocking 8 cards. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need to get cards to play for XP. And all of a sudden, my brain clicked, and I was like, I need to take damage. I'm on full health with a poison. I need to get hit. And immediately, I look at Phil, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to stay here. I'm about to get booked. And I'm like, no, I want to get booked.
Yeah.
He's just like, no, I'm going to get booked. I was like, no, I'm going to. So we're arguing over who's going to get booked and trying to line up the positioning for it because I need to burn these cards. I need to discard them for taking damage. And then we started to do that. I started to take the damage. Then I realized, but I still needed to stay alive, which meant I didn't want to get too booked. And then multiple creatures were still attacking me well after I'd completed my battle goal. And I had to then try not to lose too many cards.
Once you're on 3, I don't the wording in the battle goal, but once you're on 3 or less cards, couldn't you just, when you take damage, choose to die?
I think I need to not. No, it says I can't exhaust.
Oh, you can't
Yeah.
exhaust. You have to have
3 or
less
fewer in your hand and discard pile, while also not exhausted at the end of a scenario.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So you can't just get down to 3 and just die.
No.
Yeah.
So then I had a little panic attack.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that was funny though, because yeah, you were like, all right, I'm gonna go here, hit me, and then they hit you really hard, and you were like, all right, stop hitting.
Stop hitting. And
I
then
think one drew a miss.
yeah,
or
one
a
drew a
curse.
miss. Yeah, one drew a miss. And it was the weirdest thing because at that time I still wanted to be hit, and I
Yeah.
was just like, oh yes, and then it didn't, and I was like, no.
No.
How often do you pray for a miss
Yeah.
on
yeah.
you? Thoughts on? I mean, we won. We pretty much wrapped it up then and there. Thoughts on scenario 116?
Oh, it was heaps of fun. It was a really, really fun scenario. It was enough mechanics to make it puzzly and have to work out things. Not too much that we got stuck adminning, which we've talked about. It was cool to see some of the older monsters that we hadn't seen in a while and how they interacted. And I mean, the archers are just pure damage. Like, they don't just do anything; they just pump damage out, which is fine. The scouts do some like weird things, which was kind of cool. So I think it was a good combination while simple. It was kind of cool to see that ice speakers in a bit more detail because we only saw that one and we got real scared of it, so we killed it really quickly.
Well, they just keep doing that 4-tile cleave.
Yeah,
with
that makes everyone brittle.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and they just were doing that. They were like, oh, that's okay. It's going to hit the wagon. Oh, no, it's going to hit Phil and the wagon.
Didn't someone get hit for 16?
Probably.
Because they were like...
You got hit for 12.
Yeah, they were...
Something
hit
you for 12.
That's right. I think, yeah, they got... And I think someone got... Yeah, maybe it was me that got hit for 12. But yeah, it was like brittle and poisoned and something like that. And they drew a crit. It's like, oh, that's heaps of damage. So, yeah, it was... No, that was cool, though. It was a lot of fun.
I loved it. I thought... Because this is John Holmes' trilogy, right? We were talking about Mr. Holmes back when we did 114 with the bombing run. And we were like, talking about, it was kind of there, execution, all that kind of stuff. Not too sure. It was, and then we did the pillar defense one, and that was cool. That made it cool. He nailed this third one. I think thematically it was brilliant. I like the enemy variety. I was really like, when you see this and what we have to do, but you forget your character makeup, and I forget I'm not this giant damage dealing, like burst damage thing. It's more bits of damage and control. You're there doing this. And it was really, really, really tense. And I wasn't too sure how we were going to get away with it. Like how we were going to actually do well in this scenario until we were, 60, 70% of the way through. And it was basically everyone take damage. Ultimately take damage so that the wagons don't. And, it worked out. And then we just sped everything up. I wish I thought of that earlier. In fact, it's funny because when I was discussing with you about how birds and the +2 movement with these wagons was going to work, all I could think about was, I'm going to tell everyone that this is what we did. And I'm going to hear that that doesn't work for whatever reason. And
you mean when we talk about it on...
Yeah, when I talk about it now, I was worried.
We can still find that out. Someone's going to tell you, oh, you missed the word that says it doesn't work on carts, right? Like there's every non-cart ally gets +2 movement.
Oh, hang on. So yeah, slight malfunction there. I DM'd because it was weighing on me earlier in the week whether or not we got the rules right for that, and I was like, that is such a big part of kind of what happened. I need to know. So I DM'd Dwarf74, Mr. FAQ. I was like,
Mm.
can I do this? Have you done this scenario? And he was like, I don't know. And I was just like, oh, it's this. Can I use this card to do this? He's like, oh yeah, totally. Fuck yeah, good.
Mm.
And I was just like, thank God. Like,
Yeah.
thank you. Just to give me that peace of mind. Because I couldn't find any information about it. Anywhere.
No, well, I mean, it's because it's super niche, right? Because you're talking about probably like one card for one class that impacts one scenario, and it's a very specific part of that scenario. So it's not going to be a generic can does this movement apply to all allies, right? But yeah, I mean, I think when we work through it, we're like, the only reason that this wouldn't work is if the designer specifically wanted it not to work, because all the wording seemed to match up. And I mean, it was carts. That's the other thing we're talking about. Like, if it had been, like, I think I used the example, if it was like rocks rolling down a hill, then maybe it doesn't make sense to make them move faster. But like, even thematically, not that the game really cares about that most of the time, but that works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was the same. I was like, oh, this will be interesting when we record this, because we're going to get 1,000 people say, can't do that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, the one thing on that though, and I always check this when we do does this really work? Okay, let's do that. We would have been fine anyway. We already had number one clear, but I also just looked at where things were, and we had pretty much the whole back part of the road kind of covered from that. So it would have been one more turn. Like, we would have had to play one more turn to get through it. But I don't think we were any danger of the
Changing the
outcome
game
being
state.
different.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So
No.
yeah.
All right, no, that's good. We had really, really good curse application that time. They come in so handy. I was on 4 health for the majority of that scenario after taking one massive hit from the ice speaker that was with you. I think we got cleaved, and I had a poison on me. After that, I pulled nothing but curses on me, which was just brilliant. I absolutely loved that. Scouts, they move 5, 6. I think 6 for the elites. They're the ones that just move across the map. They really catch you out. Really, really scary. This is the second time we've seen them, but holy crap, scary. A few episodes ago, I mentioned I was a bit done with the kind of swarmy scenarios, and I said I wanted like a scenario with some bigger dudes in there, like the ones that scare you. This is what we got.
Yeah, well, that was coming into the last one as well, right? Because we had the Earth Demons, which are also big, tanky, scary dudes like that. So yeah, we've had now a couple of scenarios where that's been the case.
Yeah, but I want to kill them.
Want to kill? Oh well, yeah. I suppose that's the thing, is we've also been in the situation where we haven't really needed to kill all of them, right? It's like just manage or manipulate the monsters and get your objective done. So I feel like, I mean, we're probably gonna push on through the main storyline now that it's open.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be more Algox.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
One other point, we barely looted anything from this, which could be a problem. If we keep not really looting much, you looted like crazy last time, with the previous scenario with the sandwich and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we didn't get much there. But overall, 116 in the book, really, really happy with it. It was probably so far out of every scenario we've done, the one that had me racking my brains the most. And it would be a situation from playing from a drifter to this, but Snowflake is obviously a little bit more complex. And I've heard that people are kind of looking at me from earlier episodes with the drifter going, how is he struggling with this? I don't understand. But no, this one definitely had me really, really. I spent half the game just sort of staring at my cards, staring at the board, going through them all. I had never been so late with putting my initiative in. I'm in there like 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, you were so slow.
I know. I was.
You were like, yeah.
I love the tents though.
So this is what happens. See, everybody voted for him to play a squishy support with a pet. And instead of him just playing a healer, and throwing out a pet and just like, going like, hey, I'm going to support you. He's trying to play his support as a carry. We keep making this joke. He's like, yeah, I'll be a support. And now, how do I carry the team as my support? Look at all these options. I'm just going to run in there and get hit heaps. Like, you're not the tank, you're the support. It's like, no, because I'm going to push that guy. It's like, okay, all right,
Okay.
cool. You're dead now. That was cool.
I keep
So,
doing that. I keep putting so far out of the scenarios it's done. I keep going forward because I really want to do some pushing and pulling, and I get
mhm,
smashed for
mhm.
it.
And then he's like, heals, heals, heals.
Hey,
Like,
I didn't
you
do
are the
that.
healer.
I just
You
sat
are the
there and
healer.
accepted it. All right, accepted it. Battle goals. Mark had pedestrian, which is what I had about 2 ago and failed. Never enter a hex occupied by an ally, enemy, objective, or obstacle. The only
Did
one
he
he
do
was,
it?
yeah, he did it.
Oh, yeah,
He
cool.
was questioning whether difficult terrain counted, and I was like, no, it's not an
Oh,
obstacle.
that's
It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. He pretty much, like, after he got into that spot, he pretty much stayed in that one spot for
He
like
didn't
the whole thing,
move
just because he was in a good place in the middle. And so he kept summoning skeletons and they were just moving around, kind of protecting half the board. So it worked really well.
when they weren't getting insta-geared by the archers.
Well, that was the protecting part.
Yeah, true. Phil had bully. Kill an enemy that has 2 or more negative conditions. Now, I think he's had this a few
Yeah,
times.
but he doesn't produce negative conditions. So it's like, well, mate, again, you're just relying on everyone else to do your hard work.
But he's
Like,
also on his own. So he always runs off on his own. So it's hard to line him up with him. In a scenario like this, we kind of needed to be. But yeah, that's unfortunate. But that one's back in the pool. Maybe for someone else who can get that one
do
off.
status effects.
Seems like
Yep.
that's something you would be good at.
Yeah, I think so. I need to have a couple of my Tide cards out to do status effects. So
Now, yours is amusing. Never use
what's
a
mine?
potion.
Oh,
Can you explain why?
oh, actually, you know what? I feel like this is something else I need to take a picture of. I think that what I did at the end of the scenario when I showed you all what my battle goal was, uh, is what we probably need to record a quick snippet of and put it on there. But I picked up my battle goals, and one of them was don't use a potion. The other one were garbage. I didn't want to choose them. I only have one potion, so I was like, this is super easy, right? Like it was tricky with my last character because you got all these good ones. The potion I've got, which I brewed the last turn, and we were all going on about how cool it was, is this one that says when you draw a miss, basically discard it. I think count it as 0. I think it
Mm.
says it's like along those lines. So it's that cool. Oh no, I really need this attack to go through. I drew my miss. It doesn't matter because I'm just gonna disregard it. When I picked up my battle goal, because I always try to stand them up in front of me, because otherwise I forget about them, especially if it's a thing that you've got to remember to do through the whole scenario. If it's a set and forget, I love it. You do it, you get rid of it, and then you remember at the end. But this one, I put it up there, and then I put my potion on it. So I put my potion up there, and I put the battle goal on it. So I knew that I was never going to use it
Don't
because I'd have
touch
to
it.
move
Nice.
the battle goal to get to my potion. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit for 2. I'm like, miss, and everyone's like, oh, I was like, oh, that's annoying because I was hoping I wouldn't draw my miss and not be tempted to use my potion.
We didn't
And then like
remember
2
it.
turns later, I was like, all right, big hit, gonna hit for 4, miss again. Oh god, it's like really rubbing it in that I have that potion that is literally going to solve this problem, but I can't use it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm so desperate for ticks, right?
That's how
Like
I'm
it's
at.
just, yeah, and it's annoying because I still need one more. But luckily I leveled up, so I got a perk.
Mm. No, nice.
But
Um,
yeah, it was yeah, it was so like,
very amusing.
mm,
I had Zealot, which I said, so I got that one too. So 3 of us got it. Phil didn't, although I think he's
no, I think he needs
done. He still needs one more.
one more tick to be fully capped out. So
Poor guy.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
what was really why I was so desperate to get my first perk was that I had crafted a bunch of items that put negatives in your deck, -1s.
uh,
I think I had like 3 negatives in my deck, and I got them all with the assumption it would be really easy to get a perk to get rid of them, and then I realized that I'd already used my perks for creating a new character, and I had to wait, and I was like, oh, this maybe was bad, and then I looked, I'm like, oh, I'm ages away from getting, so luckily I leveled up and I got that, so now I basically took 3 -1s back out of my deck.
are you? I had a brain lapse, like brain fart. No, I was gonna. No, I don't know where it went. I was
Like,
listening to you and then I zoned out. Not that what you were saying was not. interesting at all.
Gee, that's the change.
No, it was something about the perk thing. Do you have a perk that removes negative ones from your deck
I've got a perk that removes
from
all
items?
negative item ones from items. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have ignore
Does that require one or two?
one.
Okay.
It's I think with characters they either have ignore scenario effects or ignore item negatives.
Drifter had both.
Yeah, well of course he did because he had 3 arms.
Yeah. No, I definitely did. All right. DPS. Blood on the Clock Tower Station for Western Empire. Citadel Confluence. What's this, Phil? What's your secret little board game note? Are these things you're planning on stealing from me?
That's Game Mania, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe. Phil. All right. So damage done, Phil, on Deathwalker. And it wasn't a very kill everything scenario. So, expect the numbers to be a little bit lower, especially for snowflakes. Deathwalker 36. Okay. 36 makes sense. I'm trying to, yeah.
36. Wow, that's really low for him.
He opened up with 2 7s and he counted his Bane. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gaz had 34 minus 2 and he counted your Bane.
Yep.
Wow, you have Deathwalker damage right there, buddy.
Oh well, I mean, no, that's like good damage
That's
for
with
me.
2
It's
misses.
like phoning in damage for Phil. Yeah, 2 misses, but they weren't big hits. So
It was 4. Mark on 25 and Snowflake on 11. But I only pulled 2 modifiers, all right? And I didn't put any hazardous terrain. I'm not too sure what I was doing. I was doing something. I'm
you're
trying to think of
making
my
it move,
turns.
I guess. Like, yeah.
Kind of. Oh, yeah. I made you move, making people. I don't know. I gave Grant move and attack to the wagon, and I didn't get the attack for that, so it's kind of rough. Damage taken. Phil had 46, and he discarded cards to mitigate 32 because he and I were both competing for who could take the most damage and discard towards the end. Gaz took 45, and you actually mitigated 10. Do you have a tied card that just gives you a shield? Is that where your mitigation is coming from?
Yeah. Yep. And I have a card that I think the bottom is a shield as well, something like that.
Okay,
So
like a standard 15 initiative, strap a shield on.
yeah. So it's kind of handy that there was a couple of turns there where I was mitigating 2 per hit, which adds up.
Yeah. Mark took 76.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So going the mass bone army, like all just little skeletons that he at some stage beefs up and has plague cloud or stink cloud or whatever it is. He's doing work with the mitigation department, but it's not really fair because he was taking so many archers.
Yeah, they're doing like 8 damage and the skeletons have 3 health, right? So it's definitely overkill, but he's getting in the way, and I think that it's funny because he was getting really frustrated with them basically spawning and dying, and I can see it because he's also got cards that makes them do something. Like it's not a bone army just to absorb damage. He also wants to make them do things, but at the same point, I'm like, yeah, but these are like 6 or 7 damage that isn't going into us or the wagon. So I think he's just like, yeah, but it's not really fun, which I get. But yeah, definitely his skeleton army is doing work.
Yeah, I was gonna say he also took 16 damage from eating his own face to spawn them, but that still puts him on 60 damage, like taken anyway without that. So it's still amazing. And then I took 27, 20 of which I discarded towards the end, which was really fun. Healing, Phil had 8. I think he threw his emergency heal out on someone. Gaz healed 5. You're a jack of all trades. You're a little mini drifter there.
I think I healed more than that, but Phil just refused to listen to me when I told him.
Did you look him in the eye?
No, I didn't look him in the eye and slap him in the back of the head and yell in his ear. Like there's like some combo of events you need to do to get him to write your stuff down.
Yeah. Mark healed 11 and I healed. Well, he didn't even total mine, even though my column says 2 and 2. That's 4, but I healed 4 apparently. There's support numbers right there. I
Yeah, very
supported
spot.
with
Like lowest healing
movement.
in the group, and you literally have a persistent card that lets you heal every round.
Yeah, but I didn't play that one.
Yeah, well, that's
No,
why
because
you
I was
didn't heal
doing
very
other
much.
things. I will go back and watch the
Are you
video and
sure?
work out what I did, and I'll compile a thesis of what I did.
I'm
All
pretty
right.
sure we can go back like 5 minutes in the audio and hear you say, "I'm not sure what I was doing." So, like, to combine that with "I was doing other things" is I don't even know if you
I'm not
knew
sure
what you were
now what I was
doing.
doing back then, but back then, Daddy
Yeah,
had an idea of what he was doing, and I think he did
yeah.
well.
Mm,
All right.
yep.
This is a co-op game. Outpost phase.
That's why you're not playing with us.
I am. All right. That's why you love having me there. Outpost phase, we had a calendar event. And
Mm-hmm.
this was really, really cool because I was just setting stuff up and I think we were chowing down on our dinner at the time and we're just sitting there listening. And it's like, oh, you hear someone approach the door and bang, 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 and the door flies open and you see the drifter. And we all just kind of went, oh, and, had a little chat with us. It was really, really cool to see old me there. And he was like, hey, I got you guys. Remember? He's like, got you guys. As you know, I make all my own things.
Yeah, as we know.
As you know, I make all my, and I'm going to teach you how to make something really, really, really useful. Which ended up being a random, what was it? A random item
Random.
blueprint.
Yeah, yeah. So the laughs came out when we're like, "Oh, this is cool. Oh, yeah, okay, you're back. Oh, you're gonna teach us some cool things." And the way that he framed it up was like, I know, yeah, as you said, I know I make all my own weapons, which we joked about as like the person's like, "I know I cut my own hair," and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, we could tell." All right, totally not. It's very obvious, and it's probably not something I'd be telling people, but with the with the drift, he's like, yeah, so I'll go speak to your craft people and I'll help them and teach them my ideas and stuff like that. And we're like, oh, okay, maybe this is gonna. I was thinking maybe it's gonna buff our crafter, maybe it's gonna give us cheaper things or access to different things. And then it was just like gain one random item. Now that could still be really good,
Yeah,
right?
could
And
be.
when you put it in the storyline and you know what the item is, when we flipped it over and it is a shovel.
Yep.
Now we go, okay, so the drifter, he's retired. He's ventured with us, he's retired. He's gone off, he's come back to be like, oh, I couldn't really do that. I want to stay here, but my adventuring days are over. Here, I'm going to teach your crafting people how to do it. Like, this is going to blow their minds, right? He's tinkered, he's worked day and night. Noises are coming out of the blacksmith, the tinkerers, the crafters, wherever he was doing it. And he comes out and he holds up this shovel.
And he's so proud of it too. And the worst
It's
part
like,
is he made it and then went, I can make these. You can't have this one, but if you need one, I'll make it for you.
I'll teach you people how to make them. So it was a very
It was very
interesting
fitting.
combination. Yes, thematic. Just as your drifter was all along, useless.
Whoa. No.
Nah, he was pretty useful by the end.
Look, he'd be more useful now than
A snowflake.
than a novice snowflake who's learning how to snowflake. All right, I think I'm doing all right. I
Yeah, I think you're
haven't
doing
had the
fine.
right scenario
Just joking.
to
Just joking.
fully maximize. Anyway, we had our actual outpost event, and this one was also really cool. And actually, I want to chat a little bit about this. So when you set up the game, you have the decks, right? You've got your outpost deck for summer. You've got your outpost deck for winter. There's the same 1 to 20 cards in there, and you shuffle them, and that's your setup. And you start drawing from them. When you add them to them, you shuffle it again. Some of them, once you've done them and you've picked a certain outcome, it's kind of like, yep, cool. Put that at the bottom of the active deck. And other times, like most times, you would remove it. Okay? There are some cards in here which are incredibly important. And the one we had this time involved upgrading a building. Now, this is the second time we've had this one. Yeah, the second time we've had this one. We've had one already. We've taken it out because we did it. And if not, it goes back in, right?
Mm.
This, from what I understand, is the only way to upgrade the barracks.
Mm.
Because it's not a building you can just upgrade. You can repair it. So I'm almost saying we got very, very lucky with this outpost
Because
card.
we've drawn it in summer and now in winter, right?
Or
So
something,
it's kind of
or both in winter. I can't remember when the
yeah,
first one we got it. It might have been actually just before summer ended.
yeah.
But super lucky. And then what happens if you get quite far in the game and it's still level 1? You're looking for a
Well,
way
then
to
you
how
just
to
go
upgrade it.
you gotta throw level 1 soldiers at the events, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're at a stage where we desperately needed it up, but it's handy to know that, you have to spend money to do it, which
Mm.
turns into nothing because Daddy Bone Shaper is just sitting there. Mark has just been funding the whole construction of Frosthaven at the moment because every time we're
Pretty
like,
much.
hey, we need to build this, he's like, how much? And he grabs the eraser and starts rubbing out the money and rubbing out the thing. And we're like, oh, and we also need
What
more soldiers, Daddy.
what I'm interested in is, we've got maybe I think we're halfway through winter, maybe one
We
past
are we
halfway.
are getting there.
Yeah,
We're
and
almost done.
like, well, we've had attacks and we've had a couple of nasty ones, and I know they just drain your resources. I feel like well, we're not going to get attacks in summer, right? Like that, the whole point of it is that you get attacked during
I think you
winter.
do.
You do get attacks in summer.
Yeah, I just think they're a
Uh,
lot rarer.
okay, yeah, because we didn't get any in the first summer,
No.
and I mean, I feel like that would be really harsh if you drew it as your first or second event, right? So unless when we get to the next summer we seed some more cards through it, it's like get X cards and chuck them through so that attacks open up for the second summer,
Mm,
and then maybe again for the second winter they become harder.
mm.
Because I just haven't felt like the and I'm probably we're gonna get booked by a scenario event now, but I feel like they haven't been that bad, the attacks, and not as anywhere near as bad or as kind of devastating as I was like, oh, winter's coming, this is going to be really bad. They've just been like, oh, here's an attack, here it's going to hit these 4 or 5 buildings, spend some resources or throw soldiers at it.
Yeah, it's hard to say because we've been on top of the resources, so we've
Mm.
not reached a stage where we built everything at our prosperity before we hit prosperity 3, and we were sitting there stockpiling everything, just going, oh my god, throw wood at the Algox, right, when they're attacking us because we got all these resources, and
Yeah.
now some of the building upgrades are getting a bit pricey, and we're also at a stage now with our prosperity that we're using that build every single time to either upgrade or
Mm.
build something. Um, which this time we did with the lumber mill, right? We upgraded the lumber mill this time. We didn't unlock the tin woodsman or whatever. We
No,
didn't
I
unlock
feel
anything.
yeah, we're also really close to the top of the morale chart. And
Mm,
I think there's a thing you read with that. So assuming it's a class or at least a building or something like that. And I think once that's the case, we probably start burning morale a bit to double build.
yeah,
Because
that's a
like
good
we've got
point.
heaps of options to building at the moment, right? Like we've got a couple of walls, we've still got other buildings that'll upgrade stuff, but we're just doing one at a time.
Yeah.
But I know you can burn the morale to build an extra time, so
The
or
thing I'm a
upgrade.
little worried about is money, right? I think that we're not generating enough. We're in a situation where a lot of the events and all that are taking it,
Hmm.
but I think lately we just haven't been earning a lot.
Oh, as in not looting enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we don't really have a good looter. I think our best looter is probably Mark because he can do the loot one from one of your minions, which they're usually in the right position to suck a few things up. And
Mm.
if he does that, he still gets to do things. Whereas at like my loot ones at a bottom, which
So it's
again
mine.
yeah, it's okay if I can play 3 cards because I can kind of move loot one and still do something. So that's
Mm.
okay. But again, that's not going to be every turn.
Mm.
Um, I kind of want to wait for there to be a good chunk of things before I do that. So,
Yeah. And then yeah, we had 3 people level up. Deathwalker hit 9, so Phil was showing us his level 9 card, which I remember being pretty amazing. The one he
is
picked.
it?
Yeah, it was something about his bottom of it is like he jumps through 4 things, jump 4 or something, and everything you go through gets cursed or gets
Ah,
something.
that's right. Yeah,
There
yeah.
was something like that, which was pretty cool. And the top part of it was
Like
something.
beat heaps of shadows, do heaps of damage,
Well, it
right?
was a move, then hit really hard with regarding
Yeah,
shadows or something, and it wasn't a burn card either, from what I remember.
yeah.
So it looked super useful. But he's finally hit 9. I think he's going to want to flesh this out a little bit. I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost certain he's going to be looking to retire it probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. It could
Mm.
even be the next scenario once he's hit a few times with this last one. And by that stage, you and I will be a little bit more comfortable with what we're
Mm.
at. But yeah, and like we've said in the past, we don't know where Mark's at with the Bone Shaper with retiring. Oh, he's unlocked a scenario. He's got a PQ that's opened a scenario that we now need to go and do. I don't know if
Mm.
it's just a one and dusted one. I know some of them you start off with and it opens up a chain, but he had to fulfill a requirement there well before then, so it could be a one-off scenario. But
Yep.
that could be one when he wants to do it. We can go out and
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I was thinking with Phil, we could throw it out as well to our listeners and watchers as to what they think he should pick based on what they know of him. So he's been playing the Deathwalker, high DPS. We know he likes doing nothing for a bunch of turns and then doing a bunch of stuff to carry the team. So I think what we've got available at the moment is the Blink Blade, the Banner Spear, the Magma, which we don't know what it is, like
Media.
Meteor. Is
Yeah,
that what it's
media.
called? Meteor, yeah, and the Trapper. So I mean, I think he's leaning towards uh, the Meteor, but prior to that, I'm not sure he was tossing up between the Blink Blade and the Banisphere. So yeah, I mean, it's much similar to as what people did with Snowflake for you, and I think a couple of people suggested the Coral. Just send us a message, one word. What do you
I'm
think Phil should play?
yeah, I'm sad that we unlocked the trap really early and no one seems that keen. Like your reasons make sense, all right, especially going from Geminate. But it's
Yep.
like I worry that no one's gonna pick it
I'll pick
because
it next. Again, assuming nothing cooler comes out first.
that's what I mean. It's
It's
like
100% my first choice for the next character I play, unless there's something better.
it. I feel like someone needs to sell it to us as guys. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. It's great. It will suit your team composition or whatever. Because I'm worried it's just gonna sit there. And I think like Phil even said he was thinking of just hanging around until another character came. In other words, doesn't want the Blink Blade, doesn't want
Yeah.
Banisphere, doesn't want the Trap. Was waiting for something new. And now that the Meteor's come out, he's kind of like, ooh,
Yeah.
he's got dips in
Yeah.
that. But what's Mark gonna pick? And I actually think Mark will be the kind of guy that would pick one of the three that's there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the Trapper, like it sounds like it would work really well with the Snowflake. So I should have chosen the Trapper. This was the best time to choose it. It would have sounds like it would have synergized throwing a bunch of traps out and then you pushing and pulling people around. But I just wanted to be a crab.
Yeah, and that's completely
The sea
fair.
was calling.
That's 100% fair. Also, we're sticking to the code names, right? For the characters, Snowflake and all that kind of stuff, just to stay in touch with Reddit and everything else, just for people who don't want to know the actual class names. The trap, I don't know if it's actually called the Trapper, but you may be accidentally calling it the class name instead of the code, which is the
Oh,
trap.
really?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just known as the trap.
Oh, okay, trap. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
but there's a chance that it's actually, you open it
Oh,
up and it's like the Trapper.
okay.
I don't think
All
it's
right.
important, but it might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, this when I say crab, I mean coral.
yeah, of course. I don't think
That's
literally the
fine.
class
No
name's
one
gonna
has
be
an
called
issue with
Crab.
that.
Yeah, no,
No.
it's just because I think there's a chance that it could actually be the Trapper.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else you want to touch on?
Nah, I think that's mostly it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up there. Thank you again very much for joining us on episode 25 of Amdirt. I have been Daddy, and I've been joined again by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.